Chiefs Kingdom. Welcome in to the AP Breakdown. Another episode for you before we get the regular season kicked off here. Still waiting on that week one opener. I'm Ron Kopp Jr., the lead analyst at arrowheadpride.com. With me, as always, Caleb James at CJ Scoobs on Twitter, film analyst at the site. We're here to break down some of the X's and O's, just some of the stuff that's been happening in Chiefs Kingdom. There's been a lot happening. All of a sudden, Caleb, busy week for the Chiefs. I don't know, man. Is your head still straight from trying to keep up with all these roster moves?
You know, we're trying to piece it all together, and everyone's going, why hasn't Veach released the roster? Well, he'll release it when he wants to, I guess. And, I mean, you go through and look at some of the moves they've been making. I mean, they go out and they bring back Juju Smith-Schuster, which I don't think anyone really saw coming. They trade for Cameron Thomas. They trade for Peyton Hendershot. They go out and sign Samaje Perine after he's released. They make some absolutely interesting personnel moves. I'm not going to say they're crazy because the guys that made the team definitely deserve to have. But there was a lot of moving and shaking. It's very apparent now there were probably some positions that they weren't quite happy with in the preseason that they thought that they needed to address and bolster. And, you know, like we were just talking about here a second ago, when these guys are competing for a roster spot, that's a roster spot on any team because you can get released 1 second by one team and, 45 minutes later, you're playing for a team getting ready to go to a three-peat. That's just how life works in the NFL.
I know guys like Samaje Perine after playing with Russ Wilson last year. I think he's definitely happy. He's going to be a happy camper here. But no, I think it is interesting, right? Like, we all watched the preseason and were unimpressed with the second and third team, units for the Chiefs. I think, hey, let's trust our eyes. I think I think this all tells you that the Chiefs weren't happy with what they have at depth either, and kind of who they had in camp. Obviously the starters were all firmed up, but yeah, man, you kind of went through them all. I mean, even a guy like Christian Roland Wallace making the team. They cut Nick Jones in favor of a local guy. I think he was from Basehor Linwood originally, Basehor Linwood High School. Eric Scott, I think, was the cornerback's name originally with Dallas. But then even your guy, you highlighted him last week, Ethan Driscoll, the UDFA offensive tackle, making it over the vet, Lucas Niang. It's something that I feel like we all probably were like, ideally that's what happens, but I didn't think they'd pull that trigger. I don't know. Were you pretty surprised to see Driscoll on the roster?
Just after the preseason, I really wasn't because I didn't expect Driscoll to be back. I kind of figured just because Niang had that experience in the Chiefs locker room, and he did struggle in the preseason. He'd had some very ugly snaps, but I just figured they'd stick with him just because he's that veteran experience. But the Chiefs were not willing to let go of Driscoll, and for good reason. He would be on someone else's active roster right now, probably just because of his size and athletic ability. There's a lot of potential there, but the Chiefs were not about to let that walk away, especially when they're constantly looking to have depth on their offensive line.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that they actually did that because Niang, we've seen what he can do, right? I think he's proven what he is. Let's get some new blood in here. That offensive tackle room is pretty short up for the future, right? So it's not like you're expecting Driscoll to have to step into anything big. He can develop. Pretty cool move on the Chiefs to give the UDFA that was impressing in camp a spot, but. Caleb, we're burying the lead. I mean, all these moves, they're really clouding up the fact that Carson Steele is on the Chiefs roster was pretty much a no-brainer by the time the preseason ended. Obviously had that great third preseason game, but he was just great throughout the preseason. In camp, you didn't really see it as much, right? Because in camp, he was really just used, as a fullback and the running back really with the second and third teams. But man, he took advantage of his opportunity and. Like he's part of this team, Cream Hunt, right? Cream Hunt. Are we going with that nickname? I tend to like that one. I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of like the nickname. I found the nickname that I think was like his high school nickname. They called him the War Horse. I kind of like that because he kind of gets galloping. But man, LRZ and Deneric Prince were basically just smokescreens this year because that's who kind of all the conversation was headed into camp. And then here comes this guy out of UCLA, and I think it's time to go to the film. He originally from Ball State. We haven't really talked about him too much. I do remember one of the days that we were up there in camp, he did have a couple of plays where it was just like, man, he does look like pretty athletic when he gets moving in space. with the ball there. And, the Chiefs were willing to continue to go down that path to even, the point of wanting to be able to give him chances. And he certainly had plenty of chances in the preseason here. We'll get this going here, but it was preseason game number 3 versus the Bears. And you see here, and they just run, they're coming back, just some simple football here, nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary. They are, they're just going to run this little power look right here, and everyone blocks it up pretty well. I think that was power that we ran here. Yep, just a little simple power play that they're going to give here out of the shotgun. You get some good blocking, but Steele gets in the open space, and he kind of shows you what he's working with, keeps the feet driving. That's where you see, where he excelled at a lot was when he was able to keep his feet moving, keep things driving, and you see the play strength. And yeah, these are backups for the Bears, but this is impressive running. This was a lot better than anything we saw from LRZ or Deneric Prince throughout the preseason. We didn't get to see much Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the preseason or anything along those lines. But, what we are going to get to see and what I am excited for moving forward is just seeing the fact that he does. And it is funny, you mentioned the Kareem Hunt thing. They have similar running styles. I don't think he's quite as explosive, but you'll see on this one here, he's got the ability when he hits the hole, he's going to hit it hard, breaks those arm tackles, and then just a nice little stiff arms. He keeps fighting his way up and through there. We'll take a look at it again. Actually, you see Ethan Driscoll, the tackle here. He actually does a good job on number 47. He kind of creates this play. He's what makes the big cutback lane. So you see both of the undrafted free agents all out there making plays right now. And you just kind of see he does have that stride that does remind you a little bit of Hunt in some regard. I'm not going to say they're going to, I think he's going to be more of an Anthony Sherman type as things progress in his career, but that's all still stuff that you like to see. And then
it is funny. You mentioned the running style. I think there is something a little bit there, just his gait, kind of his stride, like you mentioned. It is kind of funny. I could see, but obviously it's just it's just a funny nickname.
It is, but then and then just down here on the goal line, they run the little H counter look, and he's always falling forward. That's what you'd like to see in a back. So he can come in and probably play fullback, but he can also pass block. I didn't really include too many of those, but he's not a bad pass protector. He does a lot of good things, and I think there were some reps in camp where he caught the ball, when we were up there watching. It's he does have a little bit of juice out of the backfield. It's not like the pure speed, but his contact balance, his ability to break tackles, the stiff arms we saw this preseason were awesome. So, congratulations to him. That was probably one of the more unlikely ones. He had a deep room, but he convinced Andy Reid to bring a fullback back to his roster, and it sounds like the team is pretty fired up to have him be a part of this, club for a while.
Yeah, no, and I really do think he's proven to be, he can actually spell Pacheco on early downs. They want to put him. I do think, in short yardage, I think, why not have him as the fullback and then have Pacheco as the running back? Yeah, you don't need to, you can do a lot of creative things with that, right? He can block, but also, with Andy, there's a lot of those fullback traps he likes to do on third, fourth, and short. Just the, just in camp we saw that, they did where they had 3 of them in the backfield lined up in 3-point stances, Noah Gray being the third of them, and kind of having that T-bone look or that that wishbone formation look. We might see a little bit of that, Andy getting creative. But yeah, that's the thing. He kind of made the backfield out of necessity. They didn't have a lot of guys impressing in that backfield behind Pacheco, but that's why they also made that move. You mentioned it before. Samaje Perine, former Cincinnati Bengal, former Denver Bronco last year, just 1 year with the Broncos, gets cut after this preseason. It's funny. I mean, Sean Payton really did talk him up, acted like he was going to be a big part of the offense when they first signed him last offseason. And just, he was their pass down back, right? He really was the guy for them on pass downs, third downs, 2-minute drills. He was the guy in the game instead of, their main running backs, whether that's Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, I believe, last year. So there are some things to him where it's he fits the offense really well. I mean, the Chiefs offense really well. The Chiefs need a guy that can play on pass downs. And, obviously the first thing on pass downs you think of is, oh, can he make plays after the catch? He's definitely not like the most explosive guy. He's definitely not, someone that's going to necessarily, make someone miss in the open field by juking them or just being, elusive necessary, but actually, elusive probably is the right word for him because he's slippery, man. He's got quick feet. He's just not necessarily explosive. But the thing is, he's got good contact balance too. He doesn't necessarily, get brought down by, that right there, D tackle grabbing for him, he just shakes him off. That's what he can bring. He was 233 pounds coming out of the NFL draft. So he has that big frame, right? Carson Steele is like 228 or something, right? Like he was, that's a similar size profile. Obviously, I think Perine has slimmed down a little bit since his college days, and I think that's why he's a lot more, he's a lot more productive of a back, here in the NFL. But yeah, here just, again, just some examples of him, making guys miss, contact balance, staying in bounds there, just kind of staying up, fighting through contact too. You're going to see on this next play, after making that linebacker miss, just by, again, just being a little elusive, not letting ankle tackles get you down, and then boom, lowers the shoulder, gets an extra few yards. He's definitely that bigger back. He's going to use it. But that's the thing, he uses it as a pass protector too. And that's where kind of where it really becomes, clear why the Chiefs brought him in. You definitely don't want to have guys, like, Generic Prince, like, yeah, if he's going to be your pass down back, he hasn't done a lot of NFL experience. You want guys that have blocked before. Pacheco was obviously projected to do a lot of this stuff, and he still will. That's the thing, Caleb, and maybe I'll get your take here. Like, I think Pacheco is still who they want to have the ball and want to be on the field, the majority of the time. Perine obviously wasn't in camp. You can't depend on him too much in the, just in the general, respect to the offense. That thing on pass downs, pass protection, a lot of that, is easier to pick up. But like, what do you think? Do you think Pacheco should still, get a pretty, large chunk of the snaps and be still a playmaker on third downs?
Well, I like that they've got these backs that all kind of have the similar skill set now to where they don't have to necessarily, tell when who's going to be going where. I think the last couple of seasons it became a little predictable at times. Like if McKinnon's in the game and it's like a 3rd and 7, then yeah, they're probably going to throw the ball. If not, it's going to be like a screen to McKinnon. Or if Pacheco is in on early downs, you got to be looking for like an inside run. Now they don't necessarily have to run Pacheco all the time inside, but now they can also like mix things up, put Perine in on first down, but run a pass play, or have Pacheco go in on like 2nd and 7 or something and try to run for like 5 or 6 yards up the middle, something like that, and just keep the defense off balance. That's where I think this is going to be more of an advantage for the Chiefs, is keeping the defenses off balance. But, maybe with Perine likes to go up the middle too, and so does Steele, and whatever Clyde is going to do this season, I don't know. But, maybe we actually get to see the Chiefs. Maybe for the first time in his career, Pacheco gets to be the speed back because he's going to have guys like Steele and Perine doing the dirty work.
No, I think that's a great point. Like, I think Pacheco gets labeled as this bruiser, this power back, but he's actually playing with true power backs now, and he is more of a home run hitter. If you give him a lane, Pacheco has that 4.3, that high 4.3 speed where he can get going and really make big plays. But now this is where Perine does shine as a pass protector. I mean, just that base right there, lowering the shoulder, really getting low pad level, keeping his hands there, staying with the guy. This is a linebacker blitzing. That's just a great rep. And you're going to see him continue to have that wide base, continue to have that, ability to redirect, right? He picks up the looper right here. Very easy for a back to just accidentally, let that looper in. He stays with them. He's going to do the same thing here. The guard's actually going to kind of mess this up a little more. And the linebacker does a good job here, blowing up the guard's inside shoulder. But, Perine does a great job of sticking with the guy coming inside. Again, stonewalls him. You're going to see him put the shoulder down here on this one. I know it's pretty fast, but he has that ability, he's that bigger back, and he wants to, he wants to finish people to the ground. I mean, you definitely see that, he has a finishing attitude, and he wants to be aggressive in the pass protection game. But that's the thing. He isn't perfect. He does, maybe sometimes, want to make that big block a little too much. And I wonder if that's a coaching point he'll get to in Kansas City. You're going to see him here lunge, and that is an edge rusher. That's a little different, right? Than a blitzer coming in. The edge rushers definitely, are a little better beating blocks, but you definitely can't be lunging. You can't let an edge rusher, a free blitzer like that, get right into the quarterback's face, get shoved down for good measure on his route as well. Here's just another example of, again, just kind of, going for the kill shot, right? When you really in this situation, although, you do in this situation, you kind of do know, hey, cover zero, they're coming hard. Russell has to get rid of it. So maybe you do just kind of go for the strong block here, not necessarily worrying about sustaining it. But you still do want to see a little bit better pad level coming in. This one's not, this one obviously is just more, hey, he's coming across, there's only so much he can do. But again, just trying to drive through that block, trying to keep feet a little bit and not let him get all the way into the quarterback's lap like that. Russell goes down after that. So he's not perfect. He's not perfect, but he's got the size. He's got the willingness. That's a lot of it, right? Just the willingness to go up, crack a linebacker in the gap. But, we were talking about it earlier. I really do think I agree with you that they can be a little more unpredictable with who does what. Perine is a bigger back, so he can run between the tackles. This is actually a pretty nice tackle, pretty nice run off tackle. But you're just going to see, that power, that ability to shake off tackles. That's Juan Thornhill. He shakes off right there in the open field, drags other guys through. Here's an inside run where he just hits it hard, hits it right off the pole. It's a nice guard trap. The other guard does a good job pulling up, and then he just hits it right down the middle. You want to see that vertical, that north and south down the hash, and then obviously finishes the run strong. Another missed tackle force there, and then here you're going to see him power his way into the goal line. This is ruled a touchdown after review. It was upheld, but he gets contacted at about the 4-yard line, just powers his way through. So you're absolutely right, Caleb. I mean, this guy could do much more than, pass down back. I always thought, and Chiefs fans know, I mean, when he was in Cincinnati, he was an absolute killer, making guys miss in the open field off of dump off passes, screen passes. And I think that's what you're going to see him do. But again, I think you have a good point there. He can, this backfield got a lot more unpredictable with Steele and Perine in the mix, but I don't know. Any final thoughts on Perine or just the running back room right now heading into the season?
Just about the whole running back room overall. Like I kind of mentioned a second ago about Pacheco, he's finally going to get to maybe get to be the speed guy, and it's not just going to be like bruising runs up the middle. I think maybe for the first time in his career, the Chiefs have the athletes at tackle to be able to actually run outside consistently with Kingsley and Taylor, so that could be fun. We'll see kind of what they want to do there, but we're going to get some fun reps with Perine and Steele of them just keeping defenders up, and then all of a sudden the Chiefs offensive line coming in and pushing them for an extra 5 or 10 yards. That'll be fun, but I got another guy on film, and we could have done this for a lot of guys. I know Juju probably wasn't going to – I mean, we know what we're going to get out of Juju more or less. I think there's just a lot of things to like about him being back on the team. I think his leadership is going to be a big thing, though. Obviously, he's tight with Pat. He's tight with Trav. They were all, in 22, they had that good relationship. So he's going to be kind of there in that room to be kind of the elder statesman. Not saying McCole Hardman can't be the elder statesman, but you maybe prefer that to be Juju in there doing that for a guy for the younger guys like Worthy and Rice. And, even like a guy like Hendershot, we could have maybe looked through a little bit because he's not like a terrible athlete or anything, even though special teams, all the kickoff stuff. But go with the trade. They traded for Cameron Thomas. A lot of people in Chiefs, a lot of people that write about the Chiefs, including myself, a lot of people that do breakdown across the kingdom. I think a lot of people were really big on him at one point out of San Diego State. He was a really versatile guy. He did a lot of good things. Sometimes guys get into their careers and they just don't do a lot. I think that Arizona was too obsessed with his athletic ability, trying to make him into like a hybrid when he's really just not that kind of guy. He's a rundown defensive end that can shoot inside and play as an inside pass rusher. Well, where have we heard that before? I mean,
Spag special right there.
It's a Spag special. It's a Veach special. And here's just a few clips of him that I like. And he's really not a bad run defender. I think where they got him messed up was kind of when he beat too far outside, playing like an overhang. But here, just against Higbee, he drives him into the backfield 3 yards, comes off and makes a nice tackle for a loss there. When he's playing inside or he's like close to a 4-point stance, he's just like a little stand-up 2 there. But you see kind of how he does that, gets underneath everyone, is able to make the tackle. That's the kind of strength he has. He can take on tight ends. we'll get into
Well,
this.
yeah, and that's how a defensive end should look taking on a tight end. I don't want to call anybody out necessarily, but yeah, that was a good one.
Now, do you think? And here's another pass rush, and this one. So look, this is like where the Chiefs will do this with Mike Daniel. They'll do this with Omenihu. He's out here. He's like a 4-eye between a 3 tech and a 4-eye. He's straight up in the B gap. He's getting ready to rush the right guard's outside shoulder, and he sets him up. The guard oversets a little bit, so he comes back in. The guard's all extended here. The guard thinks he's going to wall him down, but just a quick spin move right there, and then he sticks with the play, keeps Purdy from throwing it. That's good effort. He's only got 2 sacks in his career, but he has more impressive reps than this, and he really didn't play too many snaps in his career down there. I just think a lot of that had to do with they weren't letting him, do what he could do naturally. I think they were trying to force him into like a lot of situations where he had to like be an off-ball guy, and that's just not where he produced at San Diego State. Now, obviously, you have to do different things in the NFL, but I think just kind of coming in here and trying to be like a role player for the Chiefs, and I like this play here. You see him lined up outside on the edge. He can run. He can line up and rush off the edge a little bit. I don't think it's where he thrives at, but he does have the ability to do so. Where he does his best is he can get inside and he get low and out leverage guys. And you see he takes the tackle right into the backfield here. There's nothing wrong with that. They're able to get to the quarterback. They don't get the stop or anything, but still a nice rep on the play. But I mean, Ron, real quick, what do you think this move kind of meant? Because I've seen a lot of people, they're kind of like, oh, I don't think this bodes very well for FAU. And I was like, I don't really know if this is like the big FAU tell that he's in trouble or not what they want, because they really aren't here to do the same thing. If anything, to me, Thomas is here to fill in for Omenihu and then develop to maybe eventually take Omenihu's spot, or just be like a good backup for either like Karlaftis or Dana moving forward in the future. That's kind of where I see him at, as where like and that's a good spin move right there by Thomas. He gets through this one really nice. He's basically lined up in a 5 right here, but he just comes in, sets the guard up, goes back inside pretty well. So he does have that kind of ability. Production hasn't really been there through his career, but you think this kind of is like a tell that they aren't the happiest with FAU or really some of these other like defensive end types they've had on the roster the last couple of years?
No, I agree with you that when you look at how he plays, it kind of does match up with how Omenihu would fit into the defense. And it was a hole either way, no matter how good FAU looked this preseason, because right behind him is Malik Herring, who, I think we all, I acknowledge he's a solid player. I've liked him since he came on, but, you can't go forward just being like, hey, we're good. Cameron Thomas, if you have guys, and that's the thing and it's a good point to point out this, especially with the Hendershot one too. The Chiefs are so low on the waiver wire. They have to make some of these kind of weird trades sometimes, to get the players they want. And, he could have easily just been a waiver wire guy. And then we don't think about it as maybe as, like oh, wow, we trading for a DN, it's really, like Neil Farrell a few years back, like that didn't mean anything. We just wanted to get Neil Farrell in and he's already off the team. They didn't bring him back. So no, I think it's a good move by Veach to develop somebody and have a little bit more of a future plan for the depth at DN behind, again, Karlaftis, and because again, you don't need guys to become stars. You have, if Karlaftis gets locked up, you have Karlaftis, Dana, and then hopefully FAU continues to develop. So you need more guys. So yeah, I don't mind it at all. Obviously if FAU did come out and dominate on rundowns or whatever, maybe they do just roll with it. But again, I agree with you overall that he's going to be more of like a rundown guy. And then on pass downs, he may not even be featured that much, but he will be more maybe inside. And FAU is not going to be inside. Like he's going to be rushing off the edge. That's what he's good at. And so I don't think his rush snaps are getting impacted for sure by Cam Thomas.
No, and actually, I think they got Farrell back on. It's funny. They got, I think, back on the practice squad, what I saw. I think they
really?
They got Farrell, Dickerson, and Lovett, and Truman Jones all back on the practice squad. So I think that's 4 guys we all kind of watch closely. If anyone got kept off the roster, it was probably Truman Jones, which stinks because I know we've been following him for a little bit now, just kind of being like an unlikely, like the Harvard guy has a chance to make the roster. And he really did look like it. Stinks he didn't get to play in that last game versus the Bears, but again, if you're the Chiefs, you have to keep adding that depth. You can't just be content with what you have. You need a guy like Cameron Thomas to push a guy like Malik Herring and see if Malik Herring actually has a future or not.
Yeah.
Just like you need someone to be like ready to go in a situation where a Minihue isn't ready for a while, and maybe like Mike Dana has to miss a couple of games. You need a guy that can fill in a little bit, but how lucky is Cam Thomas, though, man? He gets to come play with some awesome guys. He gets to learn by Chris Jones, Dana, George Karlaftis. He goes from a really chaotic situation in Arizona to now he's playing for Joe Cole, and he's getting to be teammates with some awesome defensive linemen. And if there's anything we've seen, it's Joe Cole can develop defensive linemen. You've seen Mike Dana turn into a guy who the team's
Yeah.
relying on under Cole, and you've seen Chris Jones become the best defensive tackle in football. So you've seen George Karlaftis become possibly, if you read our fellow contributor or Arrowhead Pride Nate Christensen's article about Karlaftis, you don't even know how high we don't even know how high his ceiling is yet. So just gotta be looking out for that stuff, man. But it's it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, I think Cam Thomas, you mentioned it there, like, and you kind of said it earlier too, like he wasn't really necessarily a fit with what the Cardinals were doing, that kind of that 3-4 front, more that odd front. And again, if you're going to be an odd front, I think, yeah, you'd put him as that D end kind of head up, that strong end over the offensive tackle, allow him to use those long arms. He's got a long profile. You can see those long arms in his game. Use those to let him control blocks on the edge. And yeah, maybe going into year 3, is this year 3 or year 2 for him? Was he a rookie last year? I'd have to.
I believe this is year 3. He had
That's what I thought.
He had 2 sacks as a rookie. He had no sacks last year, but he had 2 or 3 games where he had like 4 pressures. So making an impact, like probably the Arizona people are like, "Oh, he's a bust," and the Chiefs are like, "Well, we'll see what we can do."
Well, and that's the thing with trench players. Maybe I overrate this, but like, it takes some time to get that NFL strength. So I mean, year 3, he may be even, as strong as he ever has been, able to take on blocks. But then yeah, so if you're in that 3-4, you'd want him there. But yeah, in the 4-3, I think he's a great fit as that strong end, right? Yeah, just an be able to man the edge, take on blockers in the run game, but also, yeah, be able to be versatile, be able to 2-man or 2-gap it at times. No, yeah, I think he's a great fit, and that's why the Chiefs wanted to go get him. And it shouldn't necessarily be about Felix. Now, if he starts just playing over Felix completely, then there is a huge alarm bells going off for Felix's development. But again, I've said it from the get-go. Felix needs the time to develop. We're not going to really know maybe even until next year, exactly who he's going to be as a player. He was so young coming out. Cameron Thomas, he's 24 years old right now, so he was a little younger coming out too. So he's just coming into his own. I'm excited, man. I'm definitely excited for what the Chiefs did. Again, I think the main point from the start was we all kind of saw maybe the second and third teams not doing so well. Chiefs did something about it, wanted to improve that depth. So yeah, that's great. But Kale, I'm ready for the regular season now, dude. Let's get to some real football. Ravens are coming up. I mean, shoot, by the time this video is out, we're a week away, so I guess that's exciting. So yeah, any final thoughts before we get out of here on the preseason, on the Chiefs' preparation for the three-peat?
Nope. I mean, well, yeah, I guess a few, but man, we had just a great time going up to camp, being able to see all these guys go out here. You see these guys perform in person. You start making your assumptions. It stinks for the guys that didn't make it and they don't get bring back to the practice squad. Because that could be the end of the line for a lot of those guys. But it's also awesome seeing the stories like your Driscolls and Steeles. The team letting Truman Jones come back on the practice squad. You've got guys like that are, and there's guys on that practice squad that we've gone over that they're going to make an impact at some point this season. Guys get hurt. It's the NFL. There's guys that aren't playing every week somewhere. So, those guys will have to be just as ready, but I guess it's been fun. I'm pretty optimistic this could be one of the more fun Chiefs offenses we've ever seen. I feel like they could have explosive downfield passing, and I feel like now they've got the running back room that they've rounded out this offseason, that if teams do want to play back again and just try to take away the passing game, the Chiefs can just actually blast them right now. So should be fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's an underrated part of these additions you've seen too, or kind of Carson Steele's emergence and even Juju getting signed. Like this team's ready to, if they need to, just be a run heavy team, have receivers that can go out and block. You know, if you do have Juju and Rasheed in the game, or Juju's that only receiver with, you know, all the tight ends in there. Because Juju's a really good blocker for a receiver, and they needed that. Honestly, there was no one impressing as a perimeter blocker. So I think it's a little bit underrated thing. You're right. And Kingsley, that, you know, that's a way to keep him comfortable, is to really pound the rock, you know, let him, you know, just be a guy, you know, whether it's leading the front of off tackle runs or kind of being that backside cutoff guy. Jawan Taylor obviously is comfortable in those plays. Like you mentioned earlier, they're able to run outside more. I think we saw that in preseason and camp. And then, you know, that gives Pacheco the ability to maybe, you know, hit some more bigger plays, you know, get to the edge. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. We'll be breaking down more Chief stuff as we go along here. Can't wait to get that week 1 film and show you guys what we're starting off with this year. But next week, we'll probably be coming back with maybe we'll be looking back at the Chiefs AFC Championship game with the Ravens last year. Maybe that's one way to preview this game. Maybe some other ways we'll be looking at Chiefs film, Ravens film, getting us ready for Thursday night. We'll be back. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the page. We're going to be coming back weekly. These will turn into live streams soon, so make sure you're joining us on this Tuesday evenings, getting your comments in, questions even. But it's going to be a fun season, everyone. So appreciate you joining. We will catch you next time.